Alright guys, so in this problem they want us to solve for the angle that the golfer was offline with his tee shot. So you know that the dimensions that they gave you in this are 220 meters, 165 meters, and 340 meters. So how do you actually go about solving for this? Well, what I always do is I always like to redraw the triangle so I can represent that in terms of A, B, and C instead of the original points and angles that they're representing it in. So we're going to say that you got this triangle which has a measure of 220 meters, 165 meters, and 340 meters. Since we're solving for this, this is one thing I would say. Whenever you have to solve a problem dealing with a triangle, always take a second or two to see if you can see what type of a triangle is this. You can see that in this problem there is no right triangle, so you know that you're not going to be able to use right triangle trigonometry on this, meaning that you're not going to be able to use SOHCAHTOA on this. That only applies if you have a right triangle. And you can see that none of these angles are a 90-degree angle. So what that tells you is that we're either going to be using the law of sines or the law of cosines on this. But the problem is you're not given any of the angles, so you're not going to be able to use law of sines on this. And since you're solving for one of the angles but all three sides are given, the law of cosines is the best way to go. So how do you actually go ahead and solve for this? So let's just say that we're going to call this angle A. Whatever thing it is that I'm solving for, let's say if I'm applying the law of cosines, if it's the side that I'm solving for, I call that to be lowercase a. And then if it's the angle that I'm solving for, I just call that capital A. So in this case, since we're solving for this angle, I'm calling this capital A. That means that this has to be side A, and it's really up to you what you want to call one of the other sides. So let's go ahead and call this side B, which would mean that this has to be side C. Alright guys, once you have the triangle written out, you know, with the measurements and everything on it, what you want to do is actually write out the law of cosines. So this is what the equation looks like. A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of A. Alright, at this point you can start plugging in the values. So A in this case happens to be 165. And don't forget to put the squares on the top. B in this case is 220 parentheses squared. C in this case is 340 parentheses squared minus 2. Multiply sides B and C, which would give you 220 times 340 times the cosine of the angle A, which is what you're solving for in this case. Alright guys, so let's actually go over to the calculator on the right, and first of all make sure that we're in degrees. So click on mode, you can see that we are. So second quit, 165 squared, what would that give us? Okay, so that's the value that we get, 27225, and that's equal to 220 squared, which gives you 484.00 plus 340 squared. What would that give us? 115600 minus, now at this point you're going to need to multiply this out. Okay, so 2 times 220 and then times that by 340. Press the enter key and this gives you 149,600 times cosine of A. Alright guys, once you have this, your main goal is that you're solving for the cosine of A, or really the angle A. So you want to make sure that you combine everything else. So combine like terms in this case. First thing you have to do is add those two up. But keep in mind that you're not going to be subtracting the 149,600 from this, because you know there's a cosine of A next to that. So add the two values that are highlighted. So this is going to give you 48400 plus 115600. Press the enter key and you get the value on the right. Okay, so let's write that out. So you have 164,000 minus 149,600 cosine of A. Alright guys, once you have this, we're going to take this thing and subtract that on both sides of the equation. So this one cancels on the right. Subtract that from 272 to 5 minus 164,000, and that's going to give you negative 136,775, and that's equal to negative 149,600 cosine of A. Alright guys, to get the cosine of A by itself, the first thing that you have to do is divide both sides of the equation by 149,600. And you can see that there are two negative signs, one at the top, one at the bottom, so you know that the result on the left is going to simplify down to a positive value. And let's see what that actually comes out to. So this thing gives me 0.914. If I round that to 3 decimal places, then that's equal to cosine of A. But to get the A by itself, I need to take the inverse of the cosine. So A is equal to cosine inverse, or cosine negative 1 of 0.914, and since the calculator is in degrees, it's going to give us the answer in degrees. And be careful of that. If they wanted you to express the answer in radians, then you want to make sure that the calculator is set in radians. Alright guys, so cosine inverse of the answer, so I can just do second answer, or since we're already using 3 decimal places, we're just going to manually put that in, 0.914, press the enter key, and there you go. That's the answer on this one. Let's write that out. So this is 23.9 degrees, and that's the angle A that we're calling in this problem. Alright guys, that's the end of